Welcome back, golf fans. This week, the PGA stays in Hawaii and heads to Waialae Country Club for the 2023 Sony Open, and Dane and I are here to break it all down for you. If you're new to Jagerbomb's Fantasy Sports, just want to give you a little bit of information here once I get my screen set, of course. All right, we're going to go full screen on that here. If you are new to Jagerbomb's Fantasy Sports and you want to get access to all of our information that we provide, all of our content, including the cheat sheet, Discord channels, core plays, rankings, and more, make sure to head over to patreon.com/Jagerbombs for $10 US, $14 Canadian. You can get access to PGA everything PGA related for us, and for $20 a month US, 29 Canadian, you can get access to everything, which includes NBA, PGA, UFC, MLB, tennis. NASCAR's coming back pretty darn soon. Soccer, NFL is closing out here. We do have the playoffs to go through. We got college sports, college basketball in full swing here. We got the national championship tonight, and excited to hear who your pick is for that. We got the NHL as well, and then there is our all sports package. So head over to patreon.com/Jagerbombs today and join our winning team. So my question for you, Dane, first of all, how's it going? And then that'll transition us into last week's review, which we want to do each and every week. It's something that we really want to start to show off, looking back at what we got right, what we got wrong. Reviewing our lineup strategies and overall decision making is a huge part of tweaking the pro sets week to week in hopes of taking down one of those GPPs. So how are you doing? And then let's just jump into what you got right this week.
Yeah, doing well. Glad golf's back. It was a fun week to get started. We added a couple things to the sheet last week. I think that really helped me out, just visualize some certain plays and get on and get off certain guys. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But as far as last week, Rom ended up, number one in my ranks. So I got that right. Staying right at the top. With what I got wrong, though, specifically at the top of pricing was Morikawa. I was kind of high on him on the show and backed off a little bit. But, man, should have stayed on him, DFS-wise. Those two were definitely the starting point that you would have wanted.
Yeah, 100%. That's one of the biggest things I got wrong was, and I said it in chat like 5 minutes after lineup lock, I'm fully prepared for Morikawa to break my heart, and he did right from the very get-go. He absolutely broke my heart. So fading him was definitely one of my biggest what I got wrong this week. What else I got wrong? Number 1, 2, and 3 in my rankings were Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, and Patrick Cantlay. They all struggled in their own way. Hovland kind of came back. It was a roller coaster. The 67, followed that up with a 72 and a 70. He did backdoor top 20 with a 66 on Sunday, so he looked good there. Cantlay kind of struggled a bit with the driver. Oh, not a bit, actually quite a bit. Outside the top 30 in strokes gain off the tee. Justin Thomas didn't look great. Struggled with his ball strike in there. So I got quite a bit wrong. A couple things I did get right, though, kind of gives me some momentum going into this week. My builds, they do take me back to last week's show where we broke down that top tier, and we really nailed talking about Fitzpatrick and Scheffler and how they were probably going to be the best leverage plays. And that was kind of using our new leverage tool on the sheet. I'm going to bring that up here. So over here in this ownership column, the fan share tags, ranking those tags, and then looking at the difference between their ranking in those tags, which are very, very correlated to what the ownership projections are going to be from fan share, and just kind of looking at leverage. So obviously the guys with the lowest number negative in the green are going to give you the best leverage. Now this is very, very early in terms of our tags, but if you take a look at our last week's sheet, you can kind of see those overall tags where we can get that leverage. So we kind of picked out that those two players were going to be low owned. They ended up being two of the lowest owned in that range, and they both ended up, with really good weeks as well. So Fitzpatrick and Scheffler, definitely something I got right. And then Cam Young as well. He was number 6 in my model. He closed the weekend out really good with a 64 on Sunday, 69 on Saturday, and he finished with the top 10. So that was really good there. So other than that, those are a couple things we got right, a couple things we got wrong. The Morikawa thing, like I said, I would have had an even worse week if he would have closed out that win. Yeah. So seeing him kind of crap that away a little bit because I didn't have any Morikawa exposure, but I did have about 30% ROM. So that did help out, but I still was down for the week. Overall bad opening week. But we shall move on. This week's show. What do you got?
Last thing on last week was down in the value range. One of the things that it really helped me pick out was KH Lee. He was one of the guys that he popped actually number 4 in my overall model last week when you factored in price. That's something else we'll talk about that we added DK value on the sheet, which is just looking at odds versus price to go along with the leverage. He popped that both of those I think helped him pop near the top. He was 5th in leverage and 15th in value. So he had a solid week. I ended up with about 50% of him in my 20 lineups. And then you mentioned Cam Young. He was popping as a massive leverage play because we had him projected at FanShare at 11%. He ended up double that at 20. That was one of the first things I posted. It's not that I was only playing him for that, though, but that was something I posted early on in chat. I was like, if I had the exact ownership projections, I might have been a little lower on Cam Young.
Yeah,
but
exactly
it
right.
Worked out.
Yeah,
positive first week of the year. I'll take it and slide on.
100%.
The biggest thing that I was really down about was the Morikawa because he was the main one as far as a bet that I really liked the number on, and I didn't pull the trigger on anything last week. I didn't post a betting card, didn't make any outright bets myself last week.
You saved yourself from the heartache then.
Yeah, that would have been brutal.
Anyways, moving on. This week's show, once again, brought to you by FanShare Sports. At FanShare, they curate DFS PGA content from around the industry, all your favorite touts, and formulate sentiment ratings and ownership projections for every player. Not only that, but they have course suitability rankings, research tools, strokes gain data, DraftKings and FanDuel projections, customizable lineup generator, optimizer, and much more. Are you new to FanShare Sports? Sign up with promo code Jaeger, that's JAGER, and get 20% off your subscription today. So yeah, we're just kind of looking at some of the things on there right now. I'm going to flip over to FanShare. So this is the place that you can go actually for free if you want to go over and check it out, and you can check out the news feed. You're going to see players that are standing out early in the week. And then if you scroll down here, this is all the news that we curate through the week. So these are all links to either Twitter, YouTube, articles, podcasts, pretty much anything, and then talking about these are the players that are being talked about in those shows. So if you want a place where you can go and do your research, put it all together, FanShare Sports is excellent for that. You can head over to fansharesports.com, and if you want to sign up with promo code Jaeger, you can get 20% off your monthly or yearly subscription there as well. All right, so let's dive into this week, Dane. We have a little bit weaker of a field here this week in terms of last week, but we do have 7 of the top 25 golfers, 6 if Billy Horschel rumors are true. I'm not sure if you heard that or not, but apparently he might be withdrawing from the tournament to work on his new swing. It sounded like he wasn't really satisfied with how he played last week, so we might see him withdraw here. So don't be pumping him in your lineups. Probably, I wouldn't touch him in your lineups. Unless you want to do some, scrambling around on Wednesday, probably till Wednesday, because I'm sure we're going to get that news either later today or tomorrow if he actually is going to withdraw from the tournament. We're also back to a cut event. Top 65 and ties make it to the weekend. Much different from last week. Same Hawaiian, not the same Hawaiian island, but we're still in Hawaii. But as for the courses, they are much, much different than the Tournament Champions, what we've seen last week at the Plantation course. Waialae Country Club is the host here. It is a par 70. It's 7,044 yards on the scorecard. Very tight driving course, lots of dog legs. It puts a lot of emphasis on positioning and accuracy off the tee, first of all, and then the greens. Our Bermuda once again here this week. Average size about 6,500, which is nowhere near the size of Plantation last week, which were around that 8,500 on average square feet. The other note I have here, the word is the rough has been grown out from its usual just over about 2 inches to in places 3 inches, and some places even just a little bit over that. This puts even more emphasis on accuracy for me. And then the lower greens and regulation percentage will also bring in a strokes gain around the green. Is there anything I missed there? Any stats that you're specifically looking at here in a completely different Hawaiian tournament this week?
No, I think you nailed it. Kind of a shorter course for people to get going. You're going to see a lot of the same types of players play well here that you see at like a Wyndham in the fall or towards the fall. A lot of approach is going into my model this week. Only 2 par 5s, so some par 4s, opportunities gained, kind of the normal stuff as far as stat models go, but definitely with a little more weight to me toward approach play than off the tee even. But like you mentioned in chat, got to be accurate off these. It's not really a course that you overpower for the most part.
Exactly. It kind of takes out the advantage that the Bombers have. So we do get a wide range of players that can do well here. So I mean, generally what I'm looking for is guys that are going to be accurate off the tee and kind of fit that profile of a positional type golf course player, like a Webb Simpson type. There are some players, and we'll talk about them coming up, who kind of stand out in the distance and accuracy. There's only a couple of them, but we'll talk about them. Webb is one of them. But then definitely strokes gained approach. Definitely proximity, probably in the mid ranges what I'm looking at the most. The 125 to 150, 150 to 175 kind of correlates the most when looking at the research tools. And then strokes gained approach is one that is obviously, it's always high on my list, but I'll also factor in a little bit on the proximity from fairway as well, because obviously you're going to want to hit the fairway, and then those guys, which guys can we maybe get an advantage with, who are very well on their proximity from the fairway. Par 4 scoring being a par 70 course, and then strokes gained around the green, like I talked about, just because we're probably going to see below average greens in regulation this week, which means a sharp around the green scrambling game is going to be huge too. First of all, and it's going to be a little bit higher in my cash game model because, in terms of making the cut, generally for GPPs, I'm not looking at strokes around the green as much as I am approach, just simply because if you're not hitting greens and you're constantly getting up and down, you're never going to get to that minus 20 that's needed to win, or even in that minus, say, 17 to 20 to get inside the top 10, top 5 to where you're hitting a number, at least for the top guys in the field for sure. So that's kind of how I break that down in my model a little bit there as well. So yeah, I guess the other thing we want to look at here that is always huge when we look at the Hawaii courses is weather. So I'll have a quick peek at that here going into the week. Let me just expand that a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. What we're looking at here right now, most of the wind here looks like for the week in Honolulu is Wednesday and then going into very early Thursday morning, and it just keeps dying off. Friday, Saturday, calm 70s. Sunday, it looks like we may see some wind, which could affect that final round. But as for, splits in the first couple of days, maybe I think this could trend into something that we maybe see for a showdown round 1, where maybe we're looking at guys in the later tee times. And that's something I wanted to talk about with FanShare a little bit here. Each week I want to go over a few different things quickly on the FanShare Pro tools. So something that you can look at when you're building your lineup. So I've already gone through and I've highlighted some players that I like this week from the main tab. And then what we do is we go over to build. It takes us to our lineup optimizer. I'm always liking building the 20 for 20 max. 48,500 is kind of my minimum here. What I like to do now is you can go in here. So if we decide that there is a round 1 advantage in the late tee times, you could come in here and go mostly late players. The tee times aren't out yet, so it's not going to calculate that as of now, but what you can do, and it's going to adjust your exposures accordingly to those tee times, the guys that are in the late window, and will generate your lineups where the majority of your players come from that window of players. So that's one thing you can take advantage of over there on the FanShare Sports Tools. To kick things off here, Dane, what are some strategies that you're looking at this week? This is something we talked about last week, is kind of stars and scrubs versus balance. So before we get in, what is your kind of look at the stars and scrubs versus balance this week for yourself?
Yeah, I think last week was pretty easy to pick out if it was going to be stars and scrubs or balanced. We knew people were going to lean towards stars and scrubs with no cut. Back to the cut this week. Ran the first run of ownership projections already, and I'm really looking like it's going to be heavy in the mid-range. A lot of ownership on a couple of guys there in the mid to high 9K range. And then in the 8s, also getting some ownership. So I think, with the cut, with some lower name guys down at the bottom that people might not want to go to, I really expect us to see a little more of a balanced construction this week, whether that means starting in the 9Ks with guys like Harmon and Connors, who are getting the most ownership currently. A lot can change between now and Thursday, of course. Or if that means going a Tom Kim or Sung Jae at the top, which is still 10-5. We're used to seeing guys more than that. And then take one in the 9s, one in the 8s, and kind of ease into it that way. But I don't expect a whole lot of ownership down in the 6K range this week.
Yeah, I think that brings Tom Kim's going to be, I think we may find by the end of the week there's going to be some leverage there with him. But 10-5, it's not like one of these tournaments where we get the top guy in the 11K range. So that may change his ownership a little bit. Like instead of being 15 to 18% at the end of the week, maybe he is, just outside the top 5 in the 20 to 21%. Maybe we have 4 or 5 players that are in that 21 to 26, 27% range, something like that. But I agree with you that the lower end is not nearly as attractive, and it usually isn't in a full field event like this. Which kind of just transitions me right into my top 2 plays. Number 1 in my model is Brian Harmon. He stood out right away. The course history hasn't been great over the last few years. He has made the cut in 3 straight. Very positive to see, though. He had a stretch here where he had 4 straight top 20s from 2015 to 2018, including a T4. The form matches big time here. T16, that is T16 last week, and then back-to-back runner-ups at the RSM and the Mayakoba, T23 at the CJ Cup, T15 at the Shriners, T21 at the Tour Championship. Just rolling out 6 straight top 25s is awesome to see. He fits the accuracy mold, that I'm looking for. Corey Connors kind of fits in there as well. He's had excellent course history. I wrote him up in my article this week. 12th or better in 3 straight here at this course, which makes sense. Because he is one of the best ball strikers on tour. He comes in with 3 straight top 25s. He's just kind of been a top 25, top 30 machine. If I was starting a cash lineup, it would definitely be Harmon and Connors this week. They're both under 10K. That leaves you a lot of room here. And I'm just going to kind of build out this. I know this is the $5 drive to the green here, but I'm going to kind of build this out as like it's a cash lineup as we go along and talk about these guys. But those are 2 that stand out to me, whether you're looking at balanced or stars and scrubs, because you can kind of build this out with 7,600 left. However you want. You could build it out quite balanced and stay in that 7-8K range, or you could go down and grab a guy in the 6. But for cash games, I think that's where I'm going to start my core, is those 2 players. How are you looking at the top tier? Oh, you're on mute.
Oops.
Every show, got to do it once.
Rookie move yet again. I think, both of those guys were my top 2 plays as well, but it looks like they're going to get the most ownership. Harmon would be ahead of Connors a little bit for me. Again, like I said last week, don't let ownership get you off, guys. If you love them, play double the field, play triple the field. Yep. Still, you can get way over. It's not like last week where we're going to have guys approach 40% owned. Highest these guys are getting is mid-20s, I would expect. So if you like Harmon, like Connors, play him. I probably will. I like what you said about Tom Kim, that maybe we get a little leverage towards the end of the week on him, being the highest price guy. The hope would be that people talk themselves off of him and dip down to like a Sung Jae or Hideki, defending champion. Mm-hmm. I think that's possible, and if so, I'll definitely be hammering a little more on Tom Kim. Those are my 3 favorites from 9K and above by far right now.
Yeah, that's where I'm sitting too. I mean, for pivot plays, if it looks, depending on how ownership's going to shape up Wednesday, guys that I'm kind of monitoring, possibly Tom Hoagie, again, comes in with terrific form. He has very spotty and up and down course history here, but a T3 in 2018, T12 in 2020. The price is up there where you kind of need that top 10. So his chances of that are probably slim. So he's kind of on the edge there for me. Sung Jae, just not sure what's going to happen with Sungjae here. I'm really in the two I'm tracking the most here in this very top is Sungjae versus Tom Kim in their ownership. I'm not sure where it's going to land with those two. But kind of going down more into the little bit more balanced build that we've been talking about here. Keegan Bradley stands out to me again. I think some people are going to be off. I had him for a top 10 last week. I bet him top 10, had him in some of my core about 30%, and it didn't really work out with him last week. But we know he can spike here. He's had 12th place finishes in 2 of his last 3. He's won here recently, elite ball striker, still riding a pretty good putter, which is kind of rare from him considering, tracking him over the years. He's been one of the worst putters on tour. While he's 16th in opportunities gained and 56th, which is a little bit better than field average in terms of his putting over the last 24 rounds. And then down to Keith Mitchell for me as well. Both of them are kind of boomer bust plays. They both have good course history. So I'll be tracking both of those in that mid tier, and they'll be a part of my GPP core 100%. I'm also very close on going with Keith Mitchell in cash games, but as of now, both are kind of like that boomer bust GPP play for me. What are you looking at in kind of this mid range here?
Yeah, so I think I can go right back to KH Lee again. Mm-hmm. He rates out top 5 in my model, just playing so well. Taylor Montgomery is another guy that has just been solid, and they're both showing about very similar ownership around that 10% range. So I like those as pivots if you want to pivot down from a Connors or a Harmon or something, or even just play one and then him, one of those 2 guys as well. Cam Davis is going to probably get some love here. He doesn't actually rate out very well for me. He does in the last 24 rounds. On Fantasy National. But, if you look a little longer term, or even if you narrow that into the shorter term, he falls off a little bit. I do, and he's actually 38th in my overall model, but solid, course history here. Made the cut the last couple of years. I think he's okay. Interested to see what you think about Adam Scott. He rates out pretty well for me. He doesn't have great history here. Didn't play very well last week either, but not sure that I can get there. One last note on that top range is Hoagie. He's going to pop in everybody's stat model, looks like this week. He's second in my model on the sheet. He's second in my last 24 on Fantasy National, and he's second in the last 12 on Fantasy National for me as well.
Yeah.
But he ranks out as one of the worst values per odds on to DK price on the slate. So that knocks him down quite a bit for me. And if he's getting anywhere, and even in the teens, I think I got to go away from him at this price.
Yeah, I'm there for sure. So yeah, just kind of looking at, I mean, Hoagie for sure stands out in terms of his accuracy with these other guys that we were talking about. He's 26th in driving accuracy on the sheet. In terms of, in his putting, he's 13th. Ball striking second, so definitely with you there. Back to Keith Mitchell for a second. I mentioned earlier I wanted to talk about guys with total driving, where I'm looking for accuracy much more than driving distance for sure, but there are a few guys that do stand out, and that's one of the reasons why Keith Mitchell stood out to me. He's the only player in this field on the sheet that ranks top 10 in both driving accuracy and driving distance, and he's one of only 2 players that rank top 25 in both those stats. Webb Simpson was the other one. I hinted at that earlier, and there's only like 2 more that rank top 50 in both. So it seems to be quite a rare thing. So that's one of the reasons that stood out to me with Keith Mitchell right away, is not only was he accurate, good ball striking, course history, but the driving distance in there as well. So he can take advantage. He can use his distance to his advantage like not a lot of guys can, because once they start stretching that out, they are not hitting the fairways. And if you're not hitting the fairways or placing it even in the right spot on the fairways of this course, you're just not going to have a good shot at the green and getting those opportunities gained. So do you have any thoughts? I know Emiliano Grillo rates out quite well in my model here. He's another guy, top 25 in accuracy, 13th in good drive percentage, 5th in greens and regulation. So he's kind of hitting on the accuracy all around in terms of off the tee and, approaching the green. He's had 2 top 25s here in 2019 and 2020, made the cut in 5 of 6, missed the cut last year. Is he someone that you'd be interested in at 8K? I think in these other events where he's had previous course history, he was probably down, I'm thinking, in those seasons, maybe high 6s, mid 7s. So 8K is kind of pushing it for me, is the reason I haven't really decided on him yet.
Yeah, he ranks out pretty good for me in my stat model as well. I don't know that I'm going to get there. There's some other guys just down below, a few hundred lower, and a couple right above there with Siwoo, who I'm okay with, Mitchell, like you said, maybe even Spawn. But I think I don't know that I'm going to be able to get there this week on Griot.
And this, I can see why you love balance builds so much. Just looking at the sheet here, looking at this course history, there is so much green in this mid 7 to mid 8K range. So much course history in here. It is absolutely crazy. The guys that are comfortable in here, not even just that. I mean, look at the form. You're looking at some really good form from some of these guys in this mid K range. So balance build is definitely something I'm looking at a lot more. You know, in terms of I'm hoping that Tom Kim can come in a little bit lower owned so that I maybe only need 3 or 4 lineups in my 20 max of Tom Kim. And then I think like the other 16, I'm probably going a balance build. It's kind of the way I'm looking at my construction right now. A couple others that kind of stand out here. One that I wrote up, top 10 in my model, Hayden Buckley, 203rd in the world, which isn't that great. You wouldn't think, why are you kind of looking at him? T12 in his first trip here makes absolute sense why he's had success here. He is accurate off the tee. He sits 22nd in driving accuracy, 14th in good drive percentage. He's 17th in ball striking. A lot of that is driven by that accuracy, of course. About average in terms of his strokes gained approach, 30th in par 4 score, and he can get some strokes on those 2 par 5s. I think he can score there as well. And something that I like about my value guys, something I've been looking at a lot more recently, is not just guys that are going to make the cut. You know, like all these sports, people adapt. We're getting one more year into DFS. More people are getting sharper out there. You can't just get sometimes 6 players to make the cut, and you're automatically going to cash in your cash games. Especially in GPPs, you're not always going to cash with 6 out of 6. So something I'm looking at is round 3 and 4 score. And I want guys that are going to finish on the weekend, not just make the cut and finish T60, T55. And Buckley stood out there because he's 26th and 12th in this field on my sheet in round 3 and 4 scoring. So that's one of the reasons that stood out for me. And then 2 other guys going down just a little bit further, Ben Griffin and Russell Knox. They also fit the accuracy mold. Not so much Ben Griffin. Russell Knox, he's 41st in accuracy. Ben Griffin is 114th in driving accuracy, which isn't great, but the one thing that did stand out, he has been playing quite well. He's 14th in ball striking in the field over the last 24 rounds when looking at Fantasy National, gaining on approach. Over at the Houston Open where he finished T16, he gained strokes in every strokes gain metric. The putting is really up and down, but I'd rather have a guy that's been solid with ball striking. As we know, putting can be a lot of variance, and all it takes is one spike week. Morikawa almost did it last week. That was the reason I was off of him, is because the putting hasn't been great. He had a spike week putting up until about 3 hours left, about 9 holes left in the round. But he did have that spike week that put him right up there. And if guys are ball striking and they get that spike week putting, you're going to see them in the winning circle or at least near the top. So that's another reason why I like Ben Griffin. What are some of these guys in this maybe 8K range and lower that you like that I haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I'm going to get you on one play specifically, and then right after that, I'm going to get you on a full range. There that ends with your man Buckley.
Awesome.
The first guy that I want to get you on here is Kurt Kitayama. So right now he is ranking number 1 in the overall model, and that's with the initial leverage rankings, value rankings, everything in there for me. He ranks 5th in my stat model on the sheet, 15th last 24 Fantasy National model, 3rd last 12. There for me. 16th right now in leverage at only 4% owned. Even if that bumps a little bit, he'll still be fine. And then also 27th as far as value. He finished the fall very strong with the 2nd at the CJ Cup in October. Before that was 29th at Zozo. He had some very spike performances last year, which you love to see. 2nd at the Genesis Scottish Open, 2nd in Mexico, 3rd at the Honda early in the year. So I really, really like him overall this week. Harris English is another guy right there that I think fits this course very well. He ranks pretty good in leverage at only 6% as well. Doesn't rank great in stats, which is why I prefer Kitayama much more. JT Poston, I think, is going to get some ownership, but he does seem to fit the course pretty well. He doesn't rank out very well in almost anything I'm looking at right now. So I may be lower on him than even those two guys below. In Gary Woodland, who's one of the better values according to odds and DK price on the slate right now, ranks out pretty good in my in course history, of course, and then also the stat model, and under 10% currently. And then you've already talked about Hayden Buckley, who I like quite a bit.
First guy you wanted to try and get me on, Kurt Kitayama. I agree with everything you said. He struggled last year with the driving accuracy, and that's what really killed him to that 103rd place miscut. Now, he has good form coming in, but it is the accuracy that's bugging him again here this year, and something that's the reason I am off of him and maybe on a few other guys. He doesn't fit my accuracy mold, and that is I'm looking for guys that are high in accuracy and approach together. But I do like what you said about him. I'm close. I'm not 100% on him like you had me on Cage Lee last week. Woodland is one that you're definitely getting me on. He's 7th in strokes getting off the tee over the last 24 rounds, 17th in proximity, 7th in that 150 to 175 proximity range, 8th in opportunities gained, 15th in overall ball striking, 34th in accuracy, fairways gained, which is well above average in this field as well. And like you said, he's got great course history here. He missed the cut his last time out in 2019, but he had 4 straight finishes here of 13th or better with 3 top 10s. So I'm with you on Gary Woodland. I'm not sure where the ownership's going to go there either. I think I'm having a feeling just with how many guys we're talking about in the balanced build here that we're going to be very spread out. In this, there isn't really one guy that kind of stands out as holy. He's going to be 25 to 30% owned. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be 15 to 20% owned in this range, bringing you to that value. Again, back to what we said, where if you like a guy, if he's going to be, top 3 owned in this section, in this region, when you're looking at your balanced builds, don't just get off a guy because he's high owned. If you like him, you don't need that much. Go double the field, go 30%. Exposure to them in your 20 max if that's what you're playing, and you are right around that double the field, maybe even go up to 40%, which is 8 lineups in your 20 max. Isn't really that much because they're not going to be that one guy that stands out too much. So when we go into this lower range here, we're not going to go down too far. There's not a lot, like I agree with you, there's not a lot in the 6K range that I like, but in this maybe lower 7K, high 6K possibly, is there anyone that stands out to you? For me, my top guy and one that I'm really, really high on is Robbie Shelton. Miscut 2020, T25 in his second trip in 2021. Didn't play here last year. Looking at the values, he doesn't really stand out a lot besides Yahoo. But he comes in, he's coming off a top 10. He fits that accuracy mold here as well. And he's looked quite well. He went back down. He lost his card after the 2020-2021 season, I believe, 2 seasons ago. Spent last year on the Corn Ferry Tour. That didn't start out well for him, but then he picked up 2 wins near the end of the year, and he looks like he's kind of carried that momentum over. He missed the cut at the Mayakoba, but other than that, he has made 6 or 7 cuts, including the fall season with 2 top 15 finishes. So he's the guy that I'm looking at the most, and it's probably as low as I'm going to go is that 7K marker.
Yeah, I think there are. Robbie Shelton is definitely number 1. He was the first guy that stood out for me as well. Another guy right there that I like is Sam Ryder, 6,900. I think he rates out very well in a lot of things that I'm looking at. I guess his only bugaboo as well would be the driving accuracy.
And it's not as bad. It's right around field average.
Yeah. I think there are some guys that, though, below that if everybody is going to go balanced, that I do want to at least have some exposure. I talked about this last week of building teams with ownership, not just ownership in mind, but construction in mind as well, that if I want to dip down into the 6K range, that maybe that's when I play some of these chalkier guys that either in the mid, 8 to 9K range, or even those top price guys. So some of those that I'll look to mix in. Kevin Yu is 6,700. He rates out pretty well in stat model.
Very well.
He ended the season pretty well too, I believe, right?
Yep. And he's one of those
during the fall.
Yep. Definitely.
David Lingmerth is, another short knocker that has been playing pretty well, actually. 3 top 11s in his last 4. I think he fits the bill here. And then dropping down, just basically complete dart throws that I would only play in those bills that I was the contrarian stars and scrubs type lineups that you're jamming a couple of the high price guys in. I don't even know if this is possible, but if you play like a Tom Kim, and can you play him with Harmon and Connors? Let me see here.
Yeah, it gives you a 6,700 average. You're punting 3 6K guys.
Yeah, not gonna do that, but one like a Tom Kim, one of those guys, and then like a mid 8K something. 2 guys that I'll just throw out there: Harry Higgs, 6,400. He rates out all right everywhere except again driving accuracy. And then another guy that also doesn't rate out very well in driving accuracy, but rates out well in other places. Current form, kind of eased into the end of the fall swing, was Eric Cole, 6,200.
Yes.
39th, 35th, 27th last 3 events there of the fall.
Putting his ass off.
Yeah, so if he can keep the putter hot, maybe. But he did gain on approach at the RSM and the Houston Open, but he also lost 5 strokes off the tee at the RSM.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I'll include Aaron Baddeley in this punt range as well. He rates out 46th in my overall model right now. That's not including the leverage of the DK value quite yet. Again, another guy that's GPP only dart throw, because I'm not really comfortable with ranking outside the top 100 in driving accuracy, but he is an elite putter. He's actually looked pretty good here recently, I believe. Let me just have a look at his stats. Yeah, stats model's not terrific. He's been doing well on the par 4s. He's been making a lot of birdies. A lot of that has to do with a red hot putter. Obviously, he's gaining strokes, almost 1 or 2 strokes every single event with his putter. So if he can get a little bit of ball striking going, he can flash those. Top 10's probably out of reach, but top 25 I'll take from a guy at 6,400 for sure. If it gets you up to, say, a Tom Kim combined with maybe a Harmon Connors or KH Lee or any of these other 9K, mid 8K targets here as well.
Yeah, really like that. Of course, as we get toward Wednesday, I think both of us will have our ranks up on the sheet. Kind of narrow in this a little more as we get better ownership projections as well. I think that'll help us make some decisions, but definitely a good starting point.
Yep, 100%. So yes, make sure to head over to patreon.com/JagerBombs. Sign up, grab a package today, $10 a month for PGA only. $20 a month gets you access to all of our sports, gets you access to Discord, our cheat sheets, our rankings, plays, etc. Again, here's Chris and Dane's ranks. You will see these start populate. Late Tuesday, early Wednesday, we really like to nail down that final ownership projections and stuff before we start ranking our top 15 players. You'll also see our bet card come up. And then we've also got partnerships with Prize Picks, as well as a new one that just came on here, I believe it was just yesterday afternoon, Thrive Fantasy as well. So I'm going to try and put together some weekly videos going over a few picks that I like for both of those sites. If I don't get videos up, I'm going to try and do articles. I'm going to try and post picks in chat. I've got information on the sheet for those two as well. So make sure to check that out as well. Stay tuned. Leading up to lock, which should be again Thursday afternoon, being that we are still in Hawaii, which is awesome, gives us that extra 6 to 8 hours for me at least to build lineups on Thursday morning with all the information that is in. So thanks for tuning in, Dane. Thanks for joining me. It's been another awesome week back at the videos and talking golf as we head into our first full field event of the season. with the cut and everything. So good luck, everyone, and we will see you in chat.